Everybody, I'm Executive Assistant Chief Andre Wright. We're here to provide an update on an officer-involved shooting that occurred in the 5100 block of Sherier Place, Northwest. I want to start off by saying any loss of life in our community is tragic, and my condolences go to the family and the individual who lost their life today. We are in the initial stages of this investigation, and all the information we have at this time is, of course, preliminary. At around 11 a.m., 2nd District officers were called to a domestic disturbance at a residence in the 5100 block of Sherier Place, Northwest. The adult male suspect made threats to damage vehicles at this location. The suspect fled the scene prior to MPD units arriving on the scene. Shortly after noon, as officers were talking to the victims and completing the report, the suspect returned to the location armed with 2 knives and ran in the direction of the officers. The officers gave multiple commands for the suspect to drop the knives. As the suspect refused to comply with commands, the officers deployed their electronic control device twice. It is unclear if either taser deployment took effect. The officers continued to attempt to de-escalate the situation, leaning into less lethal tactics. The suspect continued to approach both officers, continued to ignore the officers' commands. At that time, both officers deployed their service weapon, striking the subject at least once. Officers immediately called for DC Fire and Medvest to arrive on the scene, but despite all life-saving measures, the suspect was pronounced dead. No officers were injured in this incident. Both knives have been recovered from the scene. Agents from the Internal Affairs Division are on the scene conducting an investigation in conjunction with the detectives from our Investigative Services Bureau. The case will be independently reviewed by the United States Attorney's Office, as is our policy. The involved officers have been placed on administrative leave, also per our policy. This is yet another reminder of the daily dangers that our officers face protecting the residents of the District of Columbia. And at this time, I'll take any questions you have relative to this event only. So it's domestic because it was interfamilial, and the people who were calling for police assistance relative to this subject are related to him, and that's why it's typed domestic.
How many people were placed at risk at the start of this with this suspect? Was it multiple people in the home? Was it towards one person?
So this is an outside scene, and so the parents obviously would have been at risk as they were outside, and then of course the MPD officers would have been at risk, and there were still folks in community. So this certainly was a situation where we had to keep our cool and use our best tactics, and we did.
Can you talk at all about approximately how long this sort of, I'm sure it happened fast, but this kind of period of de-escalation attempts and just sort of, can you give the nature of exactly what you all did and sort of how much time you sort of, the officers gave this before deploying their service weapons?
Right. So from the time the subject emerged on the scene, the officers immediately started to give verbal commands for him to drop 2 knives. He had 2 knives in his hand. The subject began to run around, very erratic, and never obeyed any of the officers' command. This went on for minutes. The officers showed great restraint and great patience, continually, both officers giving loud verbal commands. Subsequently, the officers did deploy one of them, their taser, at least twice. Not sure at this point whether it took effect, but that is the less lethal option. So this shows that the officers were intent on trying to de-escalate and bring the situation under control. Unfortunately, the subject charged the officers with the knife in his hand, leaving the officers no choice but to use their service weapon.
Do you have the age of the suspect?
I do not, but he is an adult male.
And you mentioned parents. Was he the son of the 2 people that were?
We know they're related, and I would have to firm up whether it's a son or a nephew or whatever the case might be, but they are related.
Was that blood on the knives in those pictures? Did he hurt himself or anyone else?
That is blood on the knives. No one else was injured.
So potentially was his blood on that knife?
There's no one else. There was no one else injured on the scene.
Any federal law
Confirm that the
enforcement?
suspect may have had some mental health issues and that, and if whether or not you've been called to the home before.
I cannot confirm whether he had mental health issues. What I can say is that his behavior was certainly erratic and illogical. Whether he had mental health issues, I don't know at this time.
Were there any federal law enforcement assets on scene or involved?
No. Only MPD officers were involved in this event. I'll take one more question.
Any word on body cam footage when that was released or time frame on that?
If in conjunction with protocol and what the family's wishes are, then we'll know whether there's body-worn camera footage that'll be released. All right?
Were there additional officers on scene besides the two who fired their service weapons when the suspect returned at noon, or was it just the two officers?
Just the two officers.
And were they partners in one vehicle?
Yes, they were partners in one vehicle. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.